Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural podcast of Intrepidity, a 2-year vision of mine that is finally coming to life here today. We wanted to feature a podcast that had guests that talked about overcoming incredible paths to become successful. As you all well know, everybody only sees public glory, but never the private struggle. I'm very excited to introduce our very first guest, Mr. Buddhakai.
What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing?
I'm so excited to have you, my friend. We were just talking about it in the studio earlier. I remember when I first got introduced to you, it was a little over 2 years ago, and Jesse had told me, he's like, man, I met this guy, and you guys remind me so much of each other. You're both so motivated, so driven, and you both have crazy ideas, which ended up becoming a nightmare for him overall, right?
Right.
So, I'm a big believer in energy. When you walk into a room, your energy introduces yourself before you even say a word, and I could tell from the very first time I met you exactly like what your energy was like. For those of you that don't know you out there, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Like, where does the name Buddhakai come from? Where are you from? And what's your purpose in life?
So real quick, guys, right now I'm celebrating over 13 years of sobriety and from over 14 years of drug addiction. My whole life has been a very tumultuous one, but due to God's grace and life and just being able to find out who I truly was in this world and my purpose and my mission, I've been able to overcome all of those different obstacles. And now I've realized that my mission is to actually share those different things that I've been able to overcome and the ways that I've been able to overcome to help ignite others to do it or inspire them to do it. And it's been an amazing journey thus far. It's actually what kept me sober. Because had I just kept it to myself and owned it from myself without actually sharing the awesomeness or the gratitude or the power that came from becoming sober, I probably would have ended up back in the same situation.
What were some of the events that took place? What led you down that path of addiction and trying drugs for the first time, if you can even remember? Kind of walk us through, the start of your life, what you think started the path that way.
Well, so my parents came from the Philippines as immigrants, you know what I mean, broke. We lived in a small little apartment out in Jersey City, and they were always busting their butts working, like constantly. And unfortunately, I was stuck home with, somebody that came with us from the Philippines who was pretty much our nanny and would watch over us. Unfortunately, there was a lot of, bad stuff that happened there. She loved my younger brother. Hated the crap out of me. I don't blame her. I was always an opinionated son of a bitch from the beginning. So I could tell that she didn't like me back then, but it led me to hanging out with all of the kids around the block as opposed to staying at home. And it led me down a path of just having fun and everything like that. In all truth, the same kids that taught me how to ride a bike, the same kids that taught me how to throw my first punch and throw a ninja star and everything like that was also the first kids that I ended up smoking up with and doing drugs at the age of 7.
Do you remember, to even try to fathom 7 years old and doing drugs, right? Can you remember what it was like, what the rush was like, and what led to the actual addiction of I need more of this, and how long did that progress, and what were some of your ultimate lows in life during that time?
Well, here's the saddest part about it. I actually hated it. But what I hated more was my own personal insecurity and having to try to fit in and always trying to want to be a part of something outside of me, right? And so I actually did it just to fit in. I hated it. Like the first time I smoked something, I was like, oh gosh, I hate this, but I would keep smoking it because of that. And every other drug I actually did in sequence was to quit the last one because unfortunately I do have an addictive personality and I did get addicted to them even when I hated them. The worst one for me was cocaine. I ended up getting so addicted to cocaine and loved it in the beginning, but after a while when, I'm starting to blow out chunks of my nose, I ended up snorting an ounce of cocaine to the head just to try to chase a high, but it was bad coke. And I knew it was bad coke, but I still kept going and wouldn't stop because I couldn't stop. So, it got really, really bad. And on the lows aspect, shoot, I've introduced so many people to drugs. It's probably the only thing I regret in life. You know how I talk about that new song with no regrets? But and when it comes to my life and the things that happened to me and the hurts that I've been through, awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They are what made me who I am today. But when it comes to the only regrets that I have, it would be the people that I hurt, my family that I stole from, or things like that. That'd probably be the only thing on the list.
You know, one of the toughest things in going through anything in life like that is, learning to forgive yourself, right?
Right.
Learning to forgive yourself, which sometimes we project onto other people in a way that they don't deserve. I have been guilty of that before. I had an older brother, and he essentially spent 21 years of his life in prison. He went from drugs to gangs to more. And when he was in prison, it's kill or be killed. And he got worse in there. He became, so much more worse and became such a savage, in not a good term.
Right.
And it's crazy to look back and see. And then, 9 years ago, he got out of prison in May, and last May, so 8 years after, he graduated with a 4-year degree in electrical engineering. But it's crazy, and talking to him, one of the things, he's just at peace. And one of the hardest things is like, how do you forgive yourself? That's one of the toughest things ever. How were you able to move forward from that and understanding how to forgive yourself?
So for me, the model of forgiveness came from God's grace. Like, here's how it happened for me. I was completely caught in meth for so many years. And this was where I actually started getting to the point where I would hit rock bottom, right? And stealing from my family. And my mom even had deadbolts on her own bedroom door, because I would sit there and use a knife and try to get in her door and steal her money and stuff like that for drugs and stuff. So it got to the point where I was literally hitting rock bottom. And my cousin, who would come once in a while to sing music with me and stuff like that, she was this amazing Christian girl who just loved Jesus so much. And I saw so much joy in her. And for the first time, she was the only person back then that could talk about God to me that I didn't want to punch in the face. Right? Everybody else, I wanted to punch you in your face. You want to talk about God? I'll punch you in your face. When she would do it, it opened up something in me that I couldn't understand and everything like that. I would try to be better whenever she was around. I mean, I wouldn't even allow my friends to curse. I'd have gang members and everything like that in my house doing music and stuff like that. Nobody was allowed to curse in front of her. And I'll never forget the one time that somebody did. I smacked crap out of them in front of her. I was like, I told you, none of that. You know what I mean? And it was just crazy because she brought out the best in me. Anyway, with that happening, I lived in New Jersey. I was like, man, I need to come out to Colorado and find this Jesus that you hang out with, or what, to find this betterness in my life. And so I just flew out without really giving them any kind of heads up. You know what I mean? And when I came out here, it was crazy because I had no clue what to expect. So my cousin, her older brother, decided, hey, listen, we got this dude who's he's a single guy, part of our church. You're going to stay at his place for a couple days because he's got 5 kids. I mean, putting me into his home right away, even though he's my cousin, is probably a dangerous bet at that point. So I stayed with this guy, and literally they would come over, pray over me, ask me, you talk to me and stuff like that. But I just really didn't even want to be bothered. I just want to be left alone so I could go through my addiction, let it wean out. The thing that I was scared about, though, is that after like 4 or 5 days of being asleep and just crashing, the withdrawals would hit. And I've never been able to make it through over a week of withdrawals. The problem was one hit and it was all gone again, right? So that would always keep me trapped in the cycle. Anyway, they would pray over me and stuff like that. And then what happened was, I was in a state of surrender. I knew my life was already messed up and I needed to just let go. So I allowed them to do whatever they were doing. But when it was just me alone in the night and staring out the window, and I was like, God, look, I don't know if you exist, but if you fucking exist, you're gonna need to take this away from me, because if you don't, I'm gonna go back to Jersey and die. I'm at the end of my rope. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep hurting the people that love me. I can't keep doing that and everything like that. But I was like, but if you truly exist and you take this from me, I will surrender my life to you completely. And that means whatever you call from me. And on the 6th, 7th day of just crashing, just waking up to take a poop and eating and then going back to sleep and just, that's it. And then having them pray over me, On the sixth, seventh day, literally, I woke up and the whole room was white. Like, so bright that I couldn't see anything. Could have just been the sun, but you know what? I know it was so much more than that. And I literally felt as though the addiction was being peeled out from me, like physically peeled out from me. And I started shaking and I was like, what the is going on? Like, I had no clue what was going on. But anyway, it came out of the back of my neck and I fell and I was like, okay, this is no joke. You're on some real shit. And I surrender. And I'll never forget it. My dad was the first person I called because my dad was always the person that would be there for me at the end, right? Everybody always asked me, hey, have you ever hit rock bottom? And I'd be like, yeah, but my rock bottom was always my dad there being the rock. And he's one of the biggest reasons why I'm free. But outside of this, you know, the physical form of what happened, but in this miracle that whatever happened, I knew right then and there that I was free. And I called my dad and I was like, Dad, it's done. He started crying, I started crying, but I just knew. And literally, that was the last week I've ever had any drugs.
Wow, that's an incredible story, Bernard. So, from that point, overcoming addiction at such a young age and moving forward, where did you find your passion for music and realize that this was the direction you really wanted to go in life?
Well, the crazy thing is, I was actually 28. I wasn't young when I finally got freed from addiction. Yeah. You know what I mean? I was 28 by the time that I was freed from addiction. The music was way before that. I've been doing music since I was 16 years old. The reason I even started rapping was because I was a fat, hopeless romantic. I was super overweight, unhealthy, and everything like that, but I wanted to get girls. I was a hopeless romantic, and I'll never forget it. Homecoming, I saw this guy named Tunde and Jay rapping on the stage, and all the girls were going crazy. I was like, well, I could rap. I did a lot of poetry, but I didn't ever rap. So I lied to Tunde. I was like, hey, we got a studio. You should go to the studio and we should make music together. I've never done it before in my life. Anyway, my friend had a DJ set, so we brought it all to my house. The guy came over, and that started everything. And I literally ended up building a studio when I was 16, home recording studio. That was probably the dopest home recording studio back then in our local neighborhood. And I formed a group called Allied Forces, started music then. And it was amazing. So the passion for music has started from that point, and I just ended up finding out I was a really, really good rapper really fast, as opposed to, you know what I mean, one of those things where it was like, hey, let me work on this craft. The poetry and the passion for the fact that it was about love at first really gave me a good jump start because I had something real that I was really rapping about. And I just got really good at it, and then I gathered all of the really, really dope local talent that was around there. And I was the center of it, which made it really amazing because as a sponge, I literally learned from so many different artists, all their different techniques, all their different flows. I would take pieces from it and make it part of my own. And it made me a beast in the rap thing, so.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, share with our watchers, Bernard, like how important it is to follow your passion and your dreams, especially in in a situation where you're struggling maybe with addiction, whether it be alcohol or drugs. How important was holding on to that dream during those tough times?
Well, and that's the thing. So I had to take a break actually from my passion to really take care of myself. I only came back to music about 3 years ago. But I took a 10-year break to really focus on what I knew I had to get done. Because for the first time in my life, I was like, you know what? If I just keep holding on to the things that I want, as opposed to the things that I know I need and be able to grow, I will end up losing this. Now that path isn't the same for everybody, right? What I just realized was this, right? The kind of processes or how to do things, or this is what you're supposed to do to get yourself better, or everything like that looks totally different for everybody. And unfortunately, there's too many people trying to push these different things onto each other. And those were the things that I rejected the most. But what I've realized throughout this whole thing is that all a person needs to do is become inspired or truly ignited from the inside. And once they are, they will find their way. For example, you are definitely an ignited soul. You could feel it. That energy that you're talking about, that's exactly that. When you know somebody's on fire and ignited, let me put it to you this way. COVID, whatever it is, any kind of obstacle that comes in your way, will it stop you?
No.
And you know that. Yeah. You don't question that. You don't want, do you know the process all the time?
No.
No, not at all. Yeah. So nobody can tell you the process, but you know that there is nothing that's going to stop you or create a hindrance. Once somebody is ignited, that's what it's like to live in that fire. And that's what happened for me. Mm-hmm. So whatever it took, regardless what it was, even if it was putting the music aside, as much as I hated doing that, right? Like even if it meant putting that aside, I had to. And just do whatever it took to actually get to where I am today. And now I feel like I'm constantly on fire.
Yeah.
And it's just been amazing.
Well, it's so funny that you say that, like when you had to take that break to work on yourself. I've always been extremely driven, obsessed, and I have a very addictive personality too. So I have to be, careful that I didn't go down another road. Thankfully I saw what it did to my brother's life, and so I wanted to use mine positive to go after dreams and entrepreneurship. But sometimes you can become so obsessed in your passion and in your dream that you lose yourself. And that sounds crazy, but I became so obsessed in wanting what I wanted instead of understanding what I needed. It was like this obsession that became toxic to myself and to those around me. And it was just a couple of years ago in 2018, we had these big dreams. We're doing Pepsi Center, we're doing Las Vegas. We had sold part of the company to somebody that I thought was gonna be this incredible partner that was a complete and ultimate failure. And ultimately that was my decision as the leader. I led us down that path, but I was so obsessed with making these things happen that I stopped taking care of myself, which resulted in me not being a good leader, not being the best husband or the best father that I could be at the time, because I was buried in my own thoughts. Right. And it took me, an entire year to snap out of that and kind of come back to and be like, what am I doing? I need control back of my company and control of myself and my thoughts. And if I don't take care of myself first, then I can't take care of everybody else. And so, 2019 was just a mentally, emotionally rebuilding year for me. And I just feel so much better. But it's important, when you said that, it like really hit home for me, because I'm like, oh my goodness, like I've overcome so many things and can continue to overcome everything. COVID, we were talking about it yesterday. It's just an opportunity to pivot and grow and learn into something else. But that's a powerful story, Bernard. Buddhakai. And how this, like what you've done is just absolutely amazing. And I remember you performing at Pepsi Center and performing the song Warrior. It was incredible. How'd you come up with that song, and how long did that one take you to write?
So the funniest thing is my favorite songs that I dropped and that I really put into usually take about 15 to 20 minutes to write. It's crazy, but those are the ones that I truly feel as though I'm not thinking about trying to make a song. I'm not thinking about how it's going to sound. I don't care about any of that, but I just connect with the purpose and the soul and that aspect of creativity that exists within every one of us, right? And when I can get out of my own head and actually tap into that, it just comes. It's almost as if something's speaking through me to put it out. And it's just that song, the concept behind that song is overcoming anything. Being a warrior, finding out that inner warrior that's within you, stopping the blaming everything around you, you know what I mean? And focusing really on what part of you could change to improve, to become better. And it doesn't even have to mean warrior as in destroy anybody else around you. The truth is the greatest warriors are the ones that can destroy themselves to become the better next version of themselves, destroy that one, become the next better version of themselves. It's not the one that could beat everybody else around them. Because you know how, as they say, no matter how badass you are, there's always gonna be somebody else that's more badass than you. Yeah. So if that's your competitional gauge, it's gonna hurt one day. But
yeah, there's no doubt. Watching you perform and watching I got the sneak peek at this new video that you guys build. It is incredible. But I can't help but to relate it. Like you're in flow. You're in a state of flow, because you just said, I'm writing these in 15 to 20 minutes, and then you go out there and you perform them. And Jesse was saying, man, it's just so easy to edit Buddhakai stuff because it's just pop, 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 pop. And I imagine that and being in a state of flow, right? Like I don't know if you've ever read that book, The Rise of Superman, but he talks about extreme athletes being in flow.
Stephen Kotler?
Yep, where everything slows down and you're just like, you just get it. We've been in those flows before in business where you're like, everything's just coming together. Everything you're touching is working. And that is like, how your last few music videos have really gone. It's just like you're in a state of flow. It's been incredible to watch.
Right, and honestly, a lot of it took that 10 years of really getting to know myself and tap into that flow. And note, even in that book, shout out to Stephen Kotler, by the way, even in that book, he talks about how it's different for everybody. I mean, there's people that do it from extreme sports. There's people from doing it, the Marines, and the way that they train the SEALs and stuff like that. There's people that do it in their businesses. There's people that do it from psychedelics. There's all these different touch points on how people can tap into flow, right? For me, tapping into flow was choosing love over everything to overcome anything. And what that meant was this. I was a very angry, insecure, overly conceited because of my insecurity, lash out type of person, vindictive, jealous, and all of that stuff. And that's the stuff that I had to work through. And my biggest challenge was how to love through that. And every time I learned how to love through that, or anytime a situation that would normally piss me off and make me want to hurt somebody back, and I chose to love through that, I tapped into this state of flow that didn't make sense for me yet in the beginning. But as I kept doing it and as I kept reading these books, it was like, holy crap, this is what you're going through. And you're actually tapping into something way greater than you that connects every single one of us. And when I started doing that, I realized that instead of me being so focused on the things that I just want instead, but I rather focus on the things that I needed to surrender, all of the things that I wanted started falling into place without me having to put so much effort into it, just like the writing. I didn't have to write the next best song. It would just come for me. I didn't have to try my best in manipulating a customer to buy cars from me. They would just buy. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to customers from just a heart-to-heart level. We'd just be chatting and everything like that, and they're signing paperwork, and they're like, wait a second, we just bought a car. Oh, that was cool. And not having to go through all that manipulative stuff, but really just connecting with people on a whole different level. And to me, that's where I find my state of flow.
Yeah, right? Like energy and passion is so powerful and so incredible. I remember 2015, we were at a dinner restaurant and we were just talking about Sparta Combat League at the time, and a guy behind us was sitting there and he's like, excuse me, he's like, I hate to interrupt, and he's like, but what are you talking about? And he's like, I just hear all this passion and I don't know anything about it. So he gave us his card and he said, hey, I'll buy you lunch sometime. I work at Tommyknocker Brewery, right? So I'm like, cool. So we went up there and we didn't know that he was the CEO at the time. And he ended up becoming, he invested into the company, and he said, I don't know anything about it, but your passion was infectious and I wanted to be a part of it. Right? And that was the thing, is like, I didn't have to sell him on anything, because ultimately at the end of the day, you will never sell somebody on your dream or vision if it sounds like a sell and it's not really passion or dreams. You know, the biggest piece of advice I could say for anybody is that we have never pursued this for the money. It's been passion. It's passion driven. And at the end of the day, in any business, you need to make money. But when you go through hard times, if you don't have that passion, you are going to quit, because it's incredibly hard, right? Like, you're going to get knocked down. And that's the purpose of this podcast, and the vision behind it is I want to share to young entrepreneurs and young musicians and young dream chasers, this is not easy. I'm 40 years old, and I've been doing it full time since I was 18 years old.
Wow.
And even before then, I was a born entrepreneur. I had a baseball card hustle at school. You know, the after school dice program that eventually I got suspended for was frowned upon.
Nice.
But, you know, ultimately, I believe I was just, this was my passion and dream. I was always fascinated with business owners, like, you know, and Philip Knight, not athletes. And so, like, that was something that always, like, really, you know, really had driven me. Who are some of the people that you look up to in your life and that you were inspired by, whether famous or not?
So first and foremost, my mom and my dad. My dad, like I said, was always there for me when I hit my rock bottom. My mom was a go-getter all her life. Like, I mean, this woman was nonstop until she died a couple years back. But she was no freaking joke. I mean, she pushed to the limits in everything. So, and did we have a really tough past? Yeah, definitely, because she was the one that would always push me, let me know I was being shitty when I was being shitty, and I felt it when it came to her. But now a lot of the different things that, a lot of the different people that I really look up to are Tony Robbins, huge for me. One of the biggest things that really moved me with him was when he talked about how, somebody came to his door when he was 17 years old and brought Thanksgiving turkey for his family when they were eating out of cans. And a few years later, he was able to feed his first family and give back to that. And now he feeds over 40 million a year, which is fucking amazing. So that moves me to some crazy extents where I want to do that at such a huge level, but I'm not yet there. So I do it at a small level now, and I'll do it at what I can. So he's one of them. And then all of these different authors that are literally go-getters and people that have overcome adversities and stuff like that. Because the truth is, man, you like you said it, we're going to fail. You're going to hit failure. And if you don't have your why or your passion or the real reason of why you're doing it, you are going to quit. Yeah. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. But if you take the time to discover that, nurture that, then nothing can stop you. And I do truly mean nothing. Because every one of those failures aren't actually failures. All of a sudden, they're stepping stones and stepping blocks. And some of the failures Napoleon Hill said this, some of the failures plants the seed for the greatest growth in everything. Because if you take that failure instead of, oh, I failed, I messed up, and all that self-shaming stuff, and which I know happens for a lot of people, right? And you beat yourself up. If you can turn that around and actually say, hey, you know what? Let's plant that seed. Let's figure out everything that we failed about and what can we do to improve it. The next thing you know, it becomes the greatest tree for you.
Bernard, we were just talking about people that inspired us, have greatly impacted our lives. You brought up Tony Robbins. I love him, man. Like we joke a lot around, in the back end of the business. Everybody be like, oh, Jeff's going Tony Robbins on us. Thanks for going Tony Robbins,
Perfect.
But, I love it. And my favorite story of Tony is that the one where, he's going through a tough time. He was younger. He had $17 left after lunch, and he saw this little boy walk in with this beautiful woman, and he holds the door open for him, and he walks over and says, excuse me. He's like, can I buy your lunch, And he's like, well, that's not my date, that's my mom. So he had $17 left to his name, and he gives it to the little boy. And he remembered, like, that was the last $17 he had, but he knew it would be okay. He just had that self-belief. Right. Goes home, opens the mailbox, and there's a check for $1,200 from a friend that owed him money, right? So it's like the power of self-belief and believing in yourself. And one of the biggest things for me has been reading books, educating myself, learning the process. You brought up Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Right. Guys, if you've never read that book, you've got to read it. I mean, what's incredible for me is it talks all the way back to the Great Depression, 1909, all the way up, and it's very relevant facts.
Oh my goodness, all of it is still relevant to this day. You know what I mean? He has another one too. I think it's Conversations with the Devil or something like that. That one's insane. Yep. I mean, it's so phenomenal. And this is something that I talk about a lot to everybody, right? The books that you are reading now will literally impact the life that you live 5 years from now. Because here's what it is. Instead of me having to go through all of my different mistakes, which I'm still going to go through, right? Yeah. Instead, I get to stand on the shoulders of giants and learn from all of these people that have already lived or learned and gone through and failed, and then share the best part of that where I could learn that so that it could become impactful parts of my life. And next thing you know, that's exactly where I'm going to be at 5 years from now. But if I spend my time not reading, right? And not learning and not growing, I'll go through my own mistakes and I'll trial and error some of them. And hopefully 5 years from now, I'll be in a little bit better of a place, but without really taking these huge leaps and jumps that these books offer us. I mean, 5 years from now could look very much the same as now. And 10 years from now, and next thing you know, you're like, where the fuck did the time go?
Right.
But instead, if you could fill your dead time, you probably don't even have dead time, do you? Me neither. But if you could fill like in between times with really feeding your head, it's so amazing. And plus, hold on real quick. One thing that I was going to say at that ending, instead of me going through all the fucked up conversations that I can go through in my head when I'm not listening, like, all the different arguments, all the different conversations, all the different parts that could cause worry and stress. I feel it with this stuff. And it replaces all of it, and it's insane.
Yeah, that's so amazing that you bring that up, because we can all get in our own head, right?
Right.
And it was like a Tony Robbins video I listened to this morning where he talks about the human mind's 2 million years old. It's not designed to make you happy. It's to keep you alert and all these things. So what you feed it is so imperative. It's crazy. In the past, like when I went through a great fitness transformation and competed, or when I competed in boxing, what I realized is I was so driven into those goals, but I never had overall health. I never had, great mental health along with physical health, along with spiritual. It was like everything. It's like I either had this great relationship, and then I was in my own head about these things. I had great business, great relationship, fitness suffered. I had great fitness, business suffered. Business was here, relationship suffered, right? So it's like an overall complete and total health package. And reading books, in the last 6 months, I've read more books in the last 6 months than I read my entire life.
Nice.
But it becomes addicting, right? You're like, oh my gosh, to hear and read somebody's story of like what they've overcome. One of my all-time favorite books is Competing with Giants. And it talks about this beverage company that started in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. And ultimately, he grew it from nothing to a $475 million a year business that Coca-Cola tried to buy for a couple $1 billion. And in this boardroom with his daughter and the directors of Coca-Cola, he got up and walked away. He walked away from a few $1 billion, and his daughter said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "They didn't care about my vision and my project the way that I did. They just wanted to eliminate us." And that is the true power. It gives me chills thinking about it when I read that, because it talks about it. No amount of money will ever replace like your passion.
Right.
And we've talked about that. If somebody came in and said, "I want to buy your business, for this amount of dollars, like, would you do it?" In many years, I would say no, and then there's those few moments when you're like, yeah, who's got the checkbook ready, right?
Right, of course.
But, ultimately you wouldn't be happy. You wouldn't be happy in that. And so that's what's so important. So like, reading books has been really huge. What are some of your goals and dreams and visions that you have coming over the next 5 years?
So right now, my real biggest goal is to actually just increase the size of the platform that I'm creating right now. My goal and purpose now, after everything from the addiction, being able to overcome that, being able to overcome obesity, being able to overcome poverty, depression, loneliness, suicidal thoughts, and being able to overcome just every one of those things, is to literally be able to share this. And I share it freely, right? But I want to be able to magnify that platform so huge that I could share it on a bigger stage to a lot more people and everything like that. And yes, if it does come back with financial gains and benefits, amazing. I appreciate all blessings, you know what I mean? But in all truth and reality, busting my butt in the car business has already made me very financially successful, and I haven't had to worry about money for the last 11 years.
Yeah.
And it's been crazy to live in that position, considering I used to stress and worry about money all the time. I mean, during my years of addiction, I can't even tell you, like, there'd be times where I would like flip over a whole couch just to find $10 for a hit, or knife through my mom's door and go through her wallet and steal money from her.
Yeah.
So, and to be financially in a position now where I can literally give more than I used to make is insane.
It's beautiful. You're talking about the car sales. Like, one of the things, when COVID hit, is some of our biggest clients are in automotive section with Sparta Media Group.
Right.
And we build, their video content. We do their social media in Spanish and English. We create their digital ads, their graphics, the whole nine. And one of the interesting things for me was like watching the everything from the panic to the confidence in different leaderships out of different groups. And like Doug Moreland, right?
Right.
This guy had made a fortune in 2008. When everybody else was panicking, he was just like, we're in it to win it. And the mindset for this one is, when everybody else was panicking, they were like, we're in it to win it. Like, we're going, it's amazing, because they always talk about it, good times produce weak leaders. and tough times produce wartime leaders and great leaders, and giants are born in this industry. And me and Jesse were talking about it. I follow you on social media, and I'm like, man, this guy's popping out cars like babies. It's crazy, and it's like, with all the restrictions and everything like that, it hasn't slowed you down at all. You're probably selling even more cars than you were prior.
I had a record-breaking month, yes.
Yeah.
In everything from numbers and gross. And not only that, the best part about it was, it was one of these things where I just had to shift the process, still have the same amount of care and everything like that. And I realized that's what it is. If I really just care about my customers, and what their needs are, and even what their needs are with everything that's happened with COVID, and I really just care about my customers, the blessings are gonna come, and I'm not worried. So it was one of those things where I literally was like, okay, if they close the showrooms and the different mandates and stuff like that, should I take unemployment? I mean, I don't really want to. I don't want to take that money. I want to be able to work and stuff like that. But if there's a way that I could sell, and so my boss asked me, hey, he was like, can you stay on, please, and help me through this and everything like that? And I was like, well, okay, you're going to ask me? Fine, let's do it. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, it was just insane. It just crushed. I changed the whole process and just made sure that the process followed everything that would keep them safe and stuff like that. But underneath all of that, it was just really caring for the customers, and I just sold so many cars. That's what I've been doing for 13 years.
Yeah, your reviews are incredible, and it's funny. Isn't it crazy when you look around the circle of very successful people, right? One of the quotes that I believe it was either Jim Rohn or Tony Robbins have talked about in the past is that you could take away all the money from the wealthiest people in the world and give it to the most impoverished people anywhere, and it wouldn't be long before those wealthy people had it back in their hands again. Right. And not because they're manipulative, but because they understand the process of money and how to evolve and how to continue to grow. And it's just incredible to watch companies thrive in these times, and you go back into history and be like, companies that were built in recessions or in tough times. And it's very motivating, to look at it and see. And I still remember, we talked about when we first met, and Jesse's like, well, he's like, let's just have dinner. And we went to Red Robbins. That's our go-to, man. That tavern double, I love it.
Nice.
But, we went and we had dinner, and we talked about it's that energy, that vibe. I remember just walking out of there like, we just felt like, I can't speak for you, but I felt like I knew you for years. It was like that connection. We just talked like we were old friends.
100%.
And those are the kind of people I want to be around. Those are the kind of people that I want to share their story here. Like you have a huge following, but a lot of our following from Sparta don't know who you are outside of maybe your performance at Pepsi Center. And there's so much more to you than just being an incredible artist. Like, I love your story, Buddhakai. The fact, think about that. Anybody watching, 7 years old, addicted to drugs. So essentially 21 years of battling addiction, and you didn't die. To find God and turn your life around the way that you have. That's amazing. How do you guide, people that look up to you? Like, what's your advice to them? How do you take them under your wing?
So right now, especially with my following on social media and Instagram, I get maybe 300, 400 messages a day. And it's really tough trying to respond to them. But what I've realized is it's very different for each and every single one of them. So my goal and my hope is to ignite them, just inspire them so that they could find their way. And again, that process, I share different tips on different processes that have worked for me, but not quite in the sense of, well, that's what you should do. As opposed to, this is different things that you can try and stuff like that. And if it works, and I really try to get to know each and every single one of these, especially the ones that really engage and want to ask questions. Other than that, man, it's just an ongoing process and just really growing and sharing everything that I've learned in my life that has taken me on this trajectory where literally, like you said, it really does feel like everything I touch turns to gold. And it doesn't mean big or anything like that. It doesn't have to be anything flashy or anything crazy. But I'm just talking about, it doesn't even have to mean financial gain. It just literally means that everything now that's happening in my life seems to just give me greater joy, greater rewards, and it's just been amazing.
Yeah, it's so true. I try to share that all the time with people when they talk about, success and everything. It is not always money. Like, success for me is sometimes coming home from a long day and seeing how excited my daughters are to see me.
Oh my gosh,
them go, daddy, daddy, and run into my arms. And that gives me like a feeling I can't even describe, right?
Uncomparable.
Waking up every day and being able to do whatever we want. Like, today's a packed day. It's a Sunday, but we're here at the studio early. Then we're going to go shoot a commercial for Dodge. And then we got all these other business projects that we have going. But
you and your 1,000 ideas.
Right, yeah. I mean, together we definitely make Jesse's head spin, Right. He's sitting behind the camera laughing right now, but because he knows it's true. But ultimately for me, success is determined on being able to live life on my own terms.
Nice.
Being able to wake up when I want, be able to do whatever I want. And behind that, though, I mean, make no mistake, we work 100 hours a week to avoid working 40. Right?
That's so funny. That's the backwards aspect of it. And for me, that success literally lies in the factor of how much am I enjoying this moment? How much am I able to enjoy my life in every facet of it, whether it's financially, whether it's my family, whether it's just being present in that moment. And the more that I can be present, the more I am actually successful, period. In my own life, in my own head, in my everything. And lately I've been able to be present in everything. It's just wonderful.
It's awesome. One of the greatest things in the world is having a dream and then seeing it come together and happen. But I don't know how it works for you. As soon as it happens for me, I'm like, what's next? And a lot of people look at it as like, why can't you just be happy? Why can't you just be satisfied with it? Because that's not my nature. That's not who I am. Like, as cliche as it sounds, I've always told everybody, it's not about the money. Like, what we're after can't be purchased. Right? It's about that legacy and that empire for my girls and my family to show them you could do whatever you want. Whatever you set your mind to it, you can do it. And no amount of money is going to get, is going to change that. I have friends that make a ton of money that they're miserable in life.
Right.
Because they don't feel free. They feel like they're trapped into that job that they have, and they have all this stress and everything. Now, of course, chasing your own dreams comes with a lot of stress and pressure because we have a lot of people relying and counting on us. But ultimately, the amount of freedom that it gives us is just unbelievable,
Right. Well, see, and that's the difference. What makes the difference between stress and going through it? What makes it stressful? Or I guess I'm wording this really wrong, but what makes it horrible? What makes stress horrible is if it doesn't have a passion behind it. Because if stress has a passion behind it, it's worth it.
Yes.
And you know what I mean? It's worth going through it and everything like that. If there's no passion behind it and you're forced to do it and it's a job that you can't stand and everything like that, then that stress is just negative. But like you said, if you're doing this on your own, you're an entrepreneur, you've got people that are under you, but you've got that passion driving you, then that stress is just a part of every day.
Yeah.
And it's not the same as it would be if it was like the trap that you were living in.
Yeah, and you just know it's going to be okay. It's like, it's that thing. It's just, you're like, man, if I have to deliver pizzas this week, it's going to be okay. We're going to make it work. And that is entrepreneurship and dream chasing. It's this, and eventually you become to a level of consistency where you're successful at something, you're mastering something well enough to go do other things as well. But the other thing I want to talk about before we close out today is I'm excited. Tell us about your new music video, what the vision is behind it, and when it's going to launch, when people are going to be able to see it.
Gotcha.
And how to see it.
So the next song that I have coming out with this music video that Jesse did is amazing. It's called No Regrets. And literally with this journey that I've lived, only till recently have I really gotten to the point where I am now free from all of my past, all of my shame, all of that pain. And I have forgiven myself, even for the people that I have hurt, to the point where I truly do get to live my life from this point on without regrets. And so that means two factors. One, nothing's gonna hold me back anymore. And two, I can continue my life with risking so much, obviously not my family or the welfare of them, but being able to take financial risk, investments, things that would normally scare the shit out of me and dive right into it. Because I can live my life with no regrets. like you said, knowing that in the end, it's going to be okay. If it's not okay, then it's not yet the end.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So there's always going to be that factor. And if we could just get to that point where we can all live our lives with no regrets, doing the things that we truly love and are passionate about, and it would just be amazing.
Yeah. When are you going to release this new video?
My birthday, 5/13. So that's May 13th. It's a couple days from now.
What time and where?
It's going to be premiering on YouTube at 1:30 p.m.
1:30 p.m. How do we come to 1:30 p.m.? Were you born at 1:30 p.m.?
Nope, it's just a 1-3 for my 13, and it's on the 13th as well. So 13 is my lucky number. It's a power number that signifies change and stuff like that. So 1-3, and then the 0 happens.
That's awesome. Where can people go to download your music and purchase it?
So right now I'm on all social media platforms: Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, Amazon Music. It's on all of them. Tidal, all of it. So you can go anywhere. But if you want to follow all of the stuff that I'm doing, follow me on Instagram, and that's at Buddhakai13. That's at BUDDHAKAI13.
In closing, Buddhakai, what advice do you have for anybody out there battling addiction or just going through a tough time, trying to figure out whether or not they should pursue their dreams?
If you want to quit, find out why. And once you really discover that why, you'll be able to do anything you need to.
That's beautiful. You know, it's one of the things that people always ask us, or, you know, especially me in general, is like, you take insane risks. Does it scare you? And the answer is, yeah. I get scared just like anybody else. But what I do is I just say, you know what? I just take a big can of fuck it juice.
Yum.
Drink it, and we jump. You know, you just jump right off that cliff, and, you know, we build the airplane on the way down, because ultimately that's entrepreneurship. That's how it's done. I don't know all the answers, but taking action is always key. What I have done better at is taking more calculated risks, where I'll sit back down and be like, okay, because, you know, mistakes are going to happen. But if they keep happening over and over and over, those aren't mistakes, those are patterns. It's a behavior. And so that's insanity, is doing the same thing over and over without no result, you know. But you have to be able to change and adapt. And, you know, one of my favorite quotes too came from Tony Robbins about quitting, is that if your 2-year-old or 3-year-old son or daughter was having a hard time walking and just kept falling down, you wouldn't just be like, oh, screw it, it's too hard. I'm not going to let her walk. I'm not going to let him walk. You wouldn't do that. And the same should be told for your dreams. No matter how many times you get knocked down, you've got to keep going. I mean, it's so important that you keep going. And this whole COVID thing, for anybody who's never been through anything, like it's a reminder of having more gratitude in your life, appreciating the small things, and that life's not forever. So we have to live now. You could always go back to the job that you had before or find another job, but your opportunity and window to pursue these dreams is closing. I hope that you'll follow us for more on the Intrepidity Podcast, and we have some really special guests coming forward. We're going to put up the link and handle on Sparta Media Group Facebook and Instagram, also our YouTube channel. Please subscribe now to this button right here. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. Until then, stay safe, pursue those dreams, and take care.
Let's go! This time we all turn our life around.